to everyone. I hope and trust that you had a wonderful day, albeit some of you may have had to work real hard. But here we are in the comfort of our homes where we can share together on this such an important subject, the subject of health. Again, I want to thank the church, pastor, and the leadership for the opportunity to share with you in this week. So welcome to everyone. Just to keep you abreast as to what we'll be doing this week, our theme is health, hope, and healing. Health, hope, and healing. Tomorrow night, we'll look at the subject. It starts in the colon. It starts in the colon. It is very important that you be here tomorrow. If there was a night that you would miss, that night was last night. So if you were not here, you've missed your night already. But for the rest of the week, you can't miss any of these presentations. It starts in the colon. Then on Wednesday night, we'd like to make that transition from sad to glad, from the standard American diet to God's life-activating diet. So I want to encourage you to be here as you learn more about the diet that God has provided for us. On Thursday night, we'll pause from our presentations and we'll have a cooking class. We'll do a few things in the kitchen, so you want to join us for that also. And then we'll be back on Friday night looking at God's pharmacy. Now, you might think that I cannot spell, but that was deliberate. It was intentional, because God's pharmacy is not the same as man's pharmacy. Not like Rite Aid or CVS. It is the herbs of the field, the food as medicine. So be here on Friday night. In our divine service on Sabbath, we'll talk about immune health during the COVID-19 pandemic. And we'll close things off looking at some different types of water therapy. Hydrotherapy will be the order of the afternoon on Sabbath. So please stay with us for this entire week. For this evening, the subject that we'll be talking about is one of much importance. It is silent killers. Silent killers. Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity. Now we pray that you'll be with us and bless us. Open up our minds and help us to understand as we look at this subject. In Jesus' name, amen. Silent killers. As you look at your screen, you'll see a number of silent killer diseases. These are ones that you must know. Now, I will not focus on all of them that you see on your screen. I'll pick a few of them, and then I'll add to our study, our presentation this evening, other types of silent killers that we're being exposed to. So take a look at it. Take note of these diseases. We'll make reference to a few of them. One of them that I'd like to speak about is one that we often refer to. Most times when we talk about silent killers, we always gravitate towards this silent killer. So let me start there, seeing that's where we are all familiar. High blood pressure. I believe that most of us, if not all of us, have heard that hypertension is a silent killer. I'm sure you've heard that. And because you've heard that, it is not something that I want to spend much time on, because you already know this one. But let's just look at it real quickly. Just to, sort of jog our memories and bring about that awareness again. High blood pressure, as you're seeing on your screen, is often called the silent killer because most people who have it don't have any symptoms. What that means, we have right now about 60 people, just about 58 or so people on the line. And of the 58 of us that are here, there may be a number of us who probably have hypertension but do not know this. I want you to think about that for a moment. And then the next sentence is, and that silence can be deadly. High blood pressure can lead to a host of serious problems, including heart attack and heart failure and stroke. Keep that in mind. All right. Now, when you look at your screen again, pay attention to your screen. And I like to use pictures so it reinforces what I'm saying. And I've been told that it somehow is worth 1,000 words. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Here are some of the effects of hypertension. Hypertension or high blood pressure, whichever you want to call it by. One, it damages the heart. So hypertension causes damage to your heart. Not only that, but damage to the eyes, damage to the kidneys, damage to the brain, damage to blood vessels. So I want you to think about the damage that hypertension is causing. And you may ask yourself the question, well, what really is hypertension? Let's use this illustration. Think of the garden hose, and you want to somehow get to the distant part of the garden or your lawn. And so you narrow the mouth of the hose so the pressure of the water can increase, so it can somehow project all the way back to those parts of the garden that you'd like to get to. So with your blood vessels, if there are obstructions such as arteriosclerosis or plaque in the arteries, then what that does, it increases the pressure of the blood flowing through the arteries, because now it is being impeded. So the heart now works harder in order to push the blood through that impediment so that it can get to the distant organs or extremities so that we can survive. It increases the pressure. Now, all this increase of pressure causes strain on the heart, and so it can damage the heart. And then the kidneys play a part, and therefore they can be damaged also. And the blood vessels, they can be damaged, and eventually blood vessels can rupture. And so we have what we call ischemic, all right? And we have what we call hemorrhagic. So these are two terms to become familiar with: hemorrhagic stroke and ischemic stroke. Ischemic meaning that it is blocked, and hemorrhagic, it means that it balloons and bursts. And so we want to be cognizant of the fact that hypertension, it does cause a tremendous impact in our society and also taking the lives of so many. Currently, let me not even say currently, because probably the numbers have gone up. But according to this stat that you're looking at on your screen, 1 million people who will have a heart attack or die from coronary artery disease this year. All right, the number probably have gone up because this data was collected before COVID struck. And so think of it now with all the stressors, and we spoke about that last night, it increases all these different issues in our lives. And we'll talk about some more about it. There's 16.5 million Americans aged 20 and older who are living with coronary heart disease. 795,000, almost close to 1 million, will suffer from a stroke. And then there are these cardiac arrests that will happen. 103 million adults with high blood pressure. We're just talking about the United States of America. 6.5 million Americans aged 20 and older who are living with heart failure. The numbers are staggering, my friends. The numbers are staggering. So when you think about it, so many are living with hypertension and they do not know. But it is important that you become acquainted with the numbers. What is considered normal blood pressure? 120/80 or less. That is considered normal blood pressure. And so if you are one of those people who you have your blood pressure machine at home and you check regularly, kudos to you, because to know is to be empowered. And so when the numbers start being elevated, as it is here, 120 to 129 over less than 80, then you're talking about an elevation in your blood pressure. And then the numbers are there on the screen. You can see 130 going up, stage 1, stage 2. And then if you get to 180, you're in a crisis mode. And therefore, my friends, it's important that you understand your numbers or know your numbers. Also, what I'd like to share with you is that there are certain things that you can do. Like I said, I just want to bring the awareness. So we're not spending our time getting into the ins and outs of hypertension. But here's a few things that you can do. Lower your blood pressure naturally. Exercise. And I know that lots of people are exercising, but then there are those who are not exercising. There are different types of exercise, different ways you can get your bodies going, whether playing a sport or just casually walking. And walking has been proven to be the most affordable. The only thing you need for walking is a good pair of sneakers. You don't have to join a gym in order to exercise. eating the right foods. And on Wednesday night, we'll talk about that transition diet, what types of foods are better for us to consume. Also, stress relief, getting rid of the stressors and carrying a load, carrying some weight training is also important. Eating cultured foods such as yogurts and probiotics so that can help with health. Juicing. These are some of the ways that you can help to reverse or lower your blood pressure. And also try juicing. That's one of the ways that you can do so. So just keep in mind that hypertension is one of the silent killers. We're talking about silent killers. For those who are just joining us, we're talking about silent killers this evening. Diabetes, silent killer. So many of us are suffering. So many people are suffering from diabetes. According to the stats, 422 million people worldwide suffer from diabetes. Now, I must say this. Here's what I want to say. Yes, we ought to be concerned with the pandemic. But for too long, we have not shown the same type of urgency and concern when it comes to these lifestyle diseases. 422 million people are suffering from diabetes, and just one disease. And I think with the pandemic, most people have forgotten that there are all these other diseases. There's still cancer, there's still heart disease, there's still diabetes, and the list goes on and on. We need to still pay attention to these silent killers. Diabetes is one of them, and especially in our community, the African American community, it is significant. So we need to be very, very cognizant of that. Here's what we are told. Diabetes is known as a silent killer because people often don't have any symptoms or may miss the symptoms altogether, especially early in the disease. In fact, the CDC estimates that in 2018, there were 1.4 million Americans ages 18 to 44 with undiagnosed diabetes. So as we're talking right now, there could be a few people on this Zoom call that have diabetes and have no idea. And what it's doing is damaging organs as we speak. With diabetes, there are two types of diabetes we often speak of, type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And the insulin becomes a factor, especially with type 2 diabetes, which is more common, where the pancreas does produce some insulin, but there's insufficient insulin. And if you look at your screen down here, let me bring my laser to where I'm pointing so you can follow me closely. Down here, you see where it talks about the pancreas. It produces, but insufficient insulin secreted in the bloodstream. And then when we are eating all this carb, and especially the refined foods and fast food from all of these chain restaurants, then we're finding where all this glucose getting into the bloodstream, there's not enough insulin to deal with the surge or the surplus of glucose. And therefore, the muscle is unable to use the glucose due to insulin resistance. And then there's obesity and other factors that result from us not having enough insulin and they're having also insulin resistance. So it is important for us to become more cognizant of these factors, that we need to be careful as to how we're treating our bodies. Now, here are some of the signs, though. Even though it's considered a silent killer, there are some telltale signs. What are some of these telltale signs when it comes to diabetes? Here's what we find. Polyuria, which is excessive urination. You find you are going to the bathroom much more than you're used to, and getting up in the nights and going to the bathroom frequently to urinate. Polydipsia, which is excessive thirst, drinking more and more because you're thirsty. It is a telltale sign. Then there's polyphagia, which is excessive hunger, always hungry, no matter how often you eat. And then there's unexplained weight loss, tired and sleepy. These are also indicators. So though it is silent, it is considered one of the silent killers, there are some signs that if we are paying attention to, we can now realize that something is going on in our bodies, and we can therefore seek for medical attention. My friends, type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes, what we need to do, low carb diet. moderate fat, no sugars. Or I'll show you later on the type of sugar that maybe you could use. Small portions, regular exercise every day, stress management, meditation, or spending time in communion with God or in nature, mindful eating. These are some of the things that can be done to somehow reduce or reverse the diabetes. And so we want to be clear that there are certain things that can be changed if better lifestyle practices are implemented. I hope you're hearing me clearly out there, and this is helping you to make wiser choices. Now, stress. Stress. I'm not sure how many of you thought of stress as a killer. Because after all, your doctor, when you go for your physical, I don't recall my doctors ever asking me about my stress level or what are some of the stressors in my life. Well, if you look at the screen, you'll see what it says. Did you know? It's asking you a question, actually. Did you know that stress is recognized as the #1 proxy killer disease today? I wonder how many of you knew this? Just type something in the chat and say, I knew this or I didn't know. Let me know that you're out there listening. So give me some feedback. Let me know. How many knew that stress is recognized as the #1 proxy killer disease today? Very good. Jennifer says she knew. Wonderful. Let me get some reaction from others. You see, the American Medical Association has noted that stress is the basic cause. Watch this now. The basic cause of more than 60% of all human illness and disease. So are you trying to say that maybe cancer can be caused from stress? Or are you trying to say that maybe hypertension can be caused from stress? Well, according to the experts, they're saying 60% of all human illnesses and disease. So we're talking about the stressors in our lives, career and finance and debt and business and all of these things. They are causing an impact in our bodies. Notice what it goes on to say. Here's what it goes on to say. It's no secret that stress can wreck our emotional well-being, but chronic stress works quietly behind the scenes to wreak havoc on our physical health. Prolonged exposure to sources of stress can quite literally make you sick, and the effects on your body can be life-threatening if left unaddressed. It is therefore important, my friends, that we pay attention to the stressors in our lives. And if there are things in our lives that are causing us to become distressed, we need to cut those things out. Now, I'm not saying that if the husband is stressing you out to get rid of him, or if the wife is stressing you out, or the kids are stressing you out, but you have to know how to manage things. And one of the things that needs to be done is to prioritize things. Oftentimes, we try to do too many things at the same time, and we wear ourselves out. We need to prioritize and make sure those things which are necessary are the things that are done first. And things that can stay for a day or two, we leave them for another time. But when you're seeing that you are experiencing headaches frequently or anxiety, you want to start looking at the fact that you may be stressed and do something about the stressors in your lives. It is important that we pay attention. The morbidity and mortality due to stress-related illness is alarming. Emotional stress is a major contributing factor of 6 leading causes of death in the United States. And here are some of them: cancer, coronary heart disease, accidental injuries, respiratory disorders, cirrhosis of the liver, and suicide. So I'd like you to take note of that, my friends. I'd like you to take note of that. So make sure you're handling your stressors better. In of itself, stress is fine. But when it gets to the point where we cannot produce or we cannot handle these stressors, then it will damage us. I see someone sharing cleansing your blood will reduce stress. Now, I want you to understand also, according to recent reports, workplace stress may contribute to up to 190 billion in healthcare expenses and over 120,000 deaths each year. Anxiety about employment could potentially kill more Americans than diabetes, Alzheimer's, or flu every year. And the source is there. So what we want to understand is that whereas we do want to pay attention to all these other diseases, let's start paying attention to stress. Let's cast all our cares upon him. The Bible invites us, Jesus invites us to cast our care upon him because he cares for us. I want you to keep in mind, Jesus cares for us. Now, let's talk about another silent killer that we find that is wreaking havoc in our world today. So what do we find? Sleep deprivation. Sleep deprivation. If you are sleeping the adequate amount of hours, just say, I got this. Just type it in the chat. I got this. I go to bed on time. I get enough sleep. I got this. Just type it in the chat. But if you're not, and you realize that you're not sleeping as much as you're supposed to, just let me know. I need help. Just type it in the chat. Just let me know. I want to get some feedback from you because I'll be the first one to tell you that I need some more sleep. All right. So someone said, I got this. All right. Now, someone is writing on the screen. If you don't mind writing in the chat so it doesn't come over on the screen, because now everyone sees on the screen and it stays on the screen. All right. So if you can take that off for me and then write in the chat so it comes up, I see it, then it goes away. All right. Thank you very much. All right. Now, let's look at a few things. What we find. All right. Someone says, I need help. I'm joining with you to let you know I need more sleep. I need more sleep. And if you are out there and you need more sleep, just say it with me. I need more sleep. Come on now. Let's try together. I need more sleep. All right. I'm seeing some faces and the mouse are not moving. Let's try it again. I need more sleep. All right. I see people typing it in the chat. It is important that we get more sleep. Here's why. Here's why. You see, with sleep deprivation, we're talking about impaired cognition. And that's why we often try to get the kids to go to bed at a certain time when school is in. They should be going to bed at 8:30 or 9 o'clock the latest so they can have enough sleep. So when they go to school the next day, they will learn cognitively. It helps when we get enough sleep. So it says lack of sleep. Here's what it says. Lack of sleep impairs memory and your ability to process information. So as I'm saying this, my kids are hearing me, and I want them to understand that it's important for them to get good sleep. They're going back to sleep on Thursday, so they need to start going back to sleep early. Summer is over. Higher levels of anxiety are associated with not getting enough sleep. Lack of sleep raises the brain's anticipatory reactions, increasing overall anxiety levels. And that's something to keep in mind. All right. Now, stroke risk. There's an increase with strokes as a result of not having enough sleep. So here we are. When you sleep 6 hours or less a night, your chance of a stroke increases 4 times. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. So I'm talking to myself now that I need to sleep more. I need to make sure that I'm getting at least 6 hours of sleep. Are you with me out there? There's an increased risk for diabetes. Now, we spoke about heart issues already. We spoke about diabetes, but here's what we find. And this is a source, this is taken from our own. This is Adventist source now. Lack of sleep increases cortisol and norepinephrine. Both are associated with insulin resistance. And so we want to be aware of these things here. Also, increase of symptoms of depression. You can tell when someone hasn't had a good night rest. They oftentimes are irritable or they're reclusive. So there are all these telltale signs. So lack of sleep disrupts the neurotransmitters to the brain, which regulates mood, increased risk of breast cancer. And whereas I may, highlight the ladies here, the fact is that men do get breast cancer also. It is rare, but they do get it also. But I want to make it clear to you, my friends, that if we are not getting enough sleep, we can have these problems that are brewing, and silently they're brewing just from a lack of sleep. Increased risk for heart disease. That's what it's saying here, all right? So there's a blood pressure decreases when you sleep. Weight gain. Sleep helps balances our hormones that may make us feel hungry and full. And therefore, we're not eating as often because we're getting adequate amount of sleep. So let's keep all these things in mind. We're talking about silent killers. And how many people knew that lack of sleep was a silent killer or sleep deprivation? So what I want to share with you then is, as we are fixing the problems that we are encountering, we're addressing them, all right? Here's what we find. As we look at the health risk, all right, we're looking at some of the things that are happening to us as we are losing a beautiful night rest, myself included. So I'm not talking against anyone because I've included myself in this. You see, the health risks that are, thank you very much, the health risks that are involved, here's what we find. And if you can just, somehow stretch your screen so that you can see it better. I want to focus right here for the moment. I hope you can see it. All right, so 7 to 9 hours, that's what's recommended. And it improves our health and daily alertness. So in order to get 7 to 9 hours, and we're talking about quality sleep now, it's best that we go to bed, say around 9:30, 10. The quality of sleep doubles before midnight. So what I mean, if we go to bed at 10, for those 2 hours, the quality of sleep is like sleeping for 4 hours after midnight. If we go to bed at 10, then we get up at 5 or 6. There we go. We have 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Now, 5 to 7 hours of sleep, the average amount that American adults sleep each night. Now, 0 to 5. So if we're working with 5 hours of sleep, puts you at high risk for a number of health problems. 2.5 times higher risk for diabetes, 45% higher risk for heart attack, and 12% higher risk of death by not sleeping. I think I'm going to go to bed early tonight. What do you say? Less than 7 hours of sleep can also lead to weight gain, as was mentioned before. I think you're getting the message. In fact, let me go back. Let me pull this up for you. I want to show you something at the bottom of the screen. This was rather alarming to me when I saw this, and I want to bring it to your attention. Now, notice this now. Going 17 to 19 hours without sleep is like having a 0.05 blood alcohol level. 21 hours without sleep, 0.08, which is that person is legally drunk. How many of us knew this? And that's why we're told that the Bible says that he gives to his beloved sleep. It is vain to rise up early and to go to bed late, because such you eat the bread of sorrow. Therefore, we need to go to bed on time. And I'm saying we because I am included in this also. So don't get me wrong, I'm included in this also, right? So I wanted to share that with you to let you know that we need to pay attention to these silent killers. They are wreaking havoc in our lives, and therefore we want to pay attention. And so what we want to do, we want to make sure that we are getting the recommended number of sleep, 7 hours, establish natural rhythms. So meaning going to bed at the same time and getting up at the same time. Turn off the distractions. Oftentimes we go to bed watching TV, or the TV is watching us as we are falling asleep. Take a nice bath before going to bed. All of these, a nice herbal tea to help calm the nerves, and then you can go to sleep and have a peaceful night's rest. All right, let's move on to something else. One of the things that we are finding out these days, and I'm watching my time. Let me take another 10 minutes or so of your time. Another thing that we're finding these days is that as we go to the hospital and we're prescribed drug therapy, in particular antibiotics, what has been discovered is that too many people are becoming antibiotic resistant. And the reason why we're becoming so resistant to these antibiotics is because we're being exposed too often to antibiotics. Now, we'll talk more about that on Wednesday night when we look at the transition diet. Because what we find is that, you see, when bacteria change and cause antibiotics to fail, which is happening right now in our world, the full impact, they're saying, is unknown. Why? Because there's no system in place to track antibiotics resistance globally. And without any urgent action, many modern medicines could become obsolete, turning even common infections into deadly threats. Well, we know because we are experiencing this pandemic right now, but there are other microorganisms that can go crazy. Why? Because we're being exposed to these things too often. And so it is causing what is considered now a worldwide crisis, a worldwide crisis. And I wanted to bring it to your attention today because it's important that you understand all these things that are happening in our world. It's a growing crisis in our world today, antibiotics resistance. So when we look at the European Union, let's look at that for a second. European Union, antibiotic resistance causes 25,000 deaths per year. In India, over 50,000 babies died in 1 year as a result of infection with resistant bacteria, usually passed on from their mothers. In Thailand, 38,000. And in the United States, we're talking about a significant number also. So I just want us to understand that here we're the problem that we're having. Let me just hasten on to the problem that we're having so that you can get the understanding. Overprescribing of antibiotics, overprescribing. Now, when you get to God's pharmacy, which we'll talk about on Friday night, you'll realize that there are certain things of nature that are considered antibiotics. That if you use them, you can be benefited without the side effects of getting over-the-counter or prescribed medications. You're having where patients not taking the antibiotics as prescribed. That's a factor also. But then we have unnecessary antibiotics used in agriculture. We're going to talk more about that on Wednesday night because the chickens and the pigs and the cows, they are getting too much of this stuff. And as we're consuming these meats, then we are ingesting the antibiotics, and not only antibiotics, but steroids, which we'll talk about on Wednesday night. And therefore, our bodies are developing a resistance to the antibiotics. So I want to bring this to your attention so you can understand that these things are putting our lives in danger. Our health is at risk. And so let me hasten on because our time is going. Now, I also want to talk about fake sugars. Fake sugars. And I think this one you're quite aware of, but there's some of us who just love things that are sweet, and we go to the pastry shop all the time, and we're buying all sorts of condiments, and just we can't help ourselves. But there's so many fake sugars in the market. And as you're looking at your screen, I'm not going to go through them all, but you can look at them and you can see some of the fake sugars. One of them in particular that I want to talk about is the one that's called aspartame or aspartame, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Now, notice this right here in the middle of your screen. It says here, artificial sugars or sweeteners are 200 to 600,000 times sweeter than normal sugar. What are some of these artificial sugars that we're talking about? So aspartame is one of the artificial sugars. And aspartame, it took a long time for the FDA to approve aspartame, and because they knew of the dangers that were associated with aspartame. What are some of these dangers? And where do we find aspartame? Well, we find it in these things that you're seeing on your screen. Just take a look at it. Take a screenshot of it so you can have it as a reference later on. The Splenda, the Equal, and a lot of these, the Jellos and the Kool-Aids and the what is considered sugar-free beverages. Well, it's sugar-free because it's fake sugar. I hope you're getting that. You see, in aspartame, one of the ingredients is methanol. And methanol breaks down into formaldehyde. And we know formaldehyde to be embalming fluid. Therefore, it is a neurotoxin. Embalming fluid is a neurotoxin. And so as we're consuming this aspartame, which today it is in so many products, we are embalming ourselves. So something to keep in mind. But I want to let you know that there are better choices. There are better choices of sweeteners that you could incorporate. because you want to stay away from this that is causing all of these chronic problems. Look at the list of chronic diseases that can be associated with aspartame. The side effects of aspartame: brain cancer. You have chronic fatigue, diarrhea, heart palpitations. You also have hypertension, diabetes. All of these can be associated with aspartame. So it's important that we are paying attention to this silent killer called sugar. What are some of the healthier choices? There's some healthier choices. We could use date sugar. We could use ripe bananas, maple syrup, molasses. And in fact, molasses is loaded with so many nutrients. So many nutrients. In fact, molasses, just on a side note, molasses, gram for gram, has more iron than any other food that we are allowed to eat, except for pig's liver. But we don't eat that. Gram for gram, molasses, loaded, and especially for women who are pregnant, nursing mothers, and those who are, when the menstrual cycle comes and you're losing, it's important to load up on your iron resources. Molasses, blackstrap, unsulfured molasses is the way to go. Raisin, and the list goes on. Agave, honey, these are all natural sweeteners that you can use, that they do not carry the same side effects as the artificial sugars. Oftentimes we rather the refined sugar. Let's be mindful of the fact that the refined sugar has been processed to the point where there are no nutrients in it, and so it robs nutrients from our bodies in order for it to be metabolized. All right, now, number of other types of toxins that we're exposed to, they're on the screen. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm going to pick a few from this list and touch on them real quickly before we close. All right, let's talk about aluminum, a silent assassin. A silent assassin. Where are some of the sources we find aluminum? We find aluminum in vaccines, in baby formula, in cooking utensils, food processing agents, cosmetics. We find it also when we are baking. So in food agents, so baking powder. And that's why you want to make sure that when you're purchasing your baking powder, that you are purchasing aluminum-free baking powder. So the list goes on. Foil, aluminum foil, aluminum cans, restaurant meals, even in deodorants, you find aluminum. And that's why you want to make sure, like the Tums of Maine, they made sure that there is no aluminum in their deodorants. We want to make sure we're paying attention to that, because when you go to the store to purchase, they're displayed on the product, aluminum or aluminum free. Be mindful of these things, my friend, because aluminum is a neurotoxin. I would encourage that we not cook in the foil. Now, you can wrap things in the foil, but when you're cooking in the foil or in the aluminum, it somehow the particles are coming off in your food. That's how we're ingesting aluminum. Here are some of the associated toxicity with aluminum: Alzheimer's and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, anemia, hemolysis, and leukocytosis, and the list goes on. Parkinson's disease, because we're talking about neurotoxin, and so there are these neurological disorders that are associated with aluminum toxicity. I encourage using stainless steelware when you're cooking. And I'll leave that on the screen just for about 5 seconds so you can take a good look at it. Get some of these cookwares so that you're not exposing yourselves and your family to this deadly neurotoxin. All right, let me end on this because my time is running out. Air pollution, silent killer. How many of us thought of air pollution as a silent killer? Again, drop me a note in the chat and let me know that, yes, I've thought about it, I've learned about it, never thought about it. Let me know what's going on out there. You see, air pollution, according to statistics, we're being told that every year, around 7 million deaths are due to exposure from both outdoor and household air pollution. When last did you hear them talking about that? I mean, we are talking about the pandemic, which we should, but look how many people are dying from air pollution. It is staggering the numbers. Staggering the numbers. Let's look at some of the other things. We're talking about strokes. We're talking about heart disease, lung cancer, both chronic and acute respiratory, including asthma. What are the sources of air pollution? Let's look at a few sources of air pollution and we close. Outdoor air pollution affects urban and rural areas and is a cause of multiple factors. Industry and energy supply. So we're talking about the factories and transportation and waste management, household energy, agricultural practices, dust. These are all sources of air pollution, all sources. Is this the kind of situation in your home where you may need to wear a gas mask in order to survive? So the question is, how is the air quality in your home? How's the air quality? Because studies are showing us that 3.8 million die prematurely every year from household air pollution from cooking. Household air pollution is mostly created by use of kerosene or solid fuels such as wood or with polluting stoves, open fires, and lamps. So there are these sources, and the percentage of disease that they are causing are also listed on your screen. It's important then to make sure that we are somehow protecting ourselves from air pollution. Chemical products that contain compounds refined from petroleum, like household cleaners and pesticides and paints and perfumes, now rival motor vehicle emissions as the top source of urban air pollution. So the things in our homes are creating more of a pollution than cars on the outside. Imagine that. These are some of the common indoor air problems. I guess most of us may not smoke, so that may not be the factor, but we do have pets and pet dander and dust and all of these things, and then dark and dampy areas, and we have volatile chemicals that we use for cleaning, causing air pollution. Take a screenshot of this source of air pollution indoor air pollution. There's so many sources that we are being exposed to, and we're killing ourselves. It's important then that we do something about it. One of the ways that we can do something about it is having house plants, purifying house plants. Take a picture of this, the snake plant, the spider plant. You'll notice that these plants, they somehow absorb some of the toxins that are in the air, like nitrogen oxide and formaldehyde. Get rid of these things so that we can breathe better. We can be healthier. So I wanted to just share some of these things with you, my friends, so that you know that there is help. All right, someone is saying that I'm moving too fast. Well, I guess they want to see the screen more clearly. Well, let me go back to that slide there. Maybe that's the one you want to see. But what I want to do is to take a picture of it. And the reason I'm saying this is because our time is running out. There we go. All right. So just take a picture of it, and then you can have it to go back to as many times as you'd like. All right. I'll give you a few seconds to make that happen. All right. Very good. Very good. And then I'll bring up the other slide to show you the different types of plants, purifying house plants that you can purchase and have it in your bedrooms, some in your kitchens, so that it can purify the air so that you can breathe in pure air, revitalized air, so that you can get rid of some of these maladies that we possibly will come down with. All right? Right, very good. Very good. So the last thing is carbon monoxide. We're still dealing with air. So let me talk about this real quickly, because carbon monoxide poisoning is also a silent killer. A number of deaths happen each year. We want to be cognizant of that. We want to make sure that we are paying attention to the things that we're using in our homes: furnace, fireplace, a stove, water heaters, running engines. These are all sources, and they're the leading causes of carbon monoxide poisoning. You want to check yourself. There are certain symptoms that will be manifested once you're exposed, whether nausea or vomiting. And if it's too much, like I just watched on the news, they were talking about using generators. Generators should never be in the house being used, because it emits so much carbon monoxide, that somehow the buildup can really knock you out in 2 minutes. So generators should be, as I say, about 20 feet away from your homes so that you're not exposed to the carbon monoxide that is emitting. All right. And also make sure you have working smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors because it kills quickly. It is silent because it is colorless, odorless, and tasteless and non-irritating. So please, my friends, pay attention to things that are in your homes. Can't be seen, can't be smelled, can't be heard, but it can be stopped. And so, my friends, I just wanted to share these with you, that we are exposing ourselves to things that are causing harm. Give me one more minute. Somehow, somebody needs to hear this one. Fragrance. You ask the question, what is fragrance? What are you talking about when you say fragrance? Well, did you know that a number of products that we use, cosmetic products, they have on the labels fragrance? Well, what would be fragrance? What we consider fragrance? Is it the way the thing smells? Well, add scents to cosmetics and personal care products. That's fragrance. Usually made up of a blend of chemicals. Fragrance can hide many chemicals as the composition does not have to be disclosed on the label. What you want to do, if you see fragrance as part of the ingredients of any product you're using, be very, very careful of that because it is a number of chemicals that are being used that the term fragrance or the name fragrance is masking. Found in nail polish, moisturizers. These are linked to diabetes, asthma, potential risk of to the reproductive system and the thyroid. So just be mindful, read, pay attention to the things that we're using, my friends. All these personal care products and feminine and sexual health products, they have been labeled with that. So what you want to do is to look for the label that says made safe. Made safe. All right, I'm going to stop here tonight. I think I've given you quite a bit of information on this subject of silent killers. There are others, but time would not allow for us to go through all of them. But you have been exposed to some of the silent killers. And the reason why I chose these ones is because these are ones that impact us on a day-to-day basis. And the fact is that we could right now be suffering from one of these maladies and do not know it. I want to leave with you this thought. Health is a choice and not a chance. Health is a choice and not a chance. We do not just get lucky. Yes, someone may have good genes and might not have been predisposed to certain things, but we can lose our health based on lifestyle choices. So we need to choose wisely. So again, take this with you. Health is a choice, not a chance. And may God bless you as you hold on to your health because it's a treasure. My friends, health is a treasure. I hope to see you tomorrow night. And tomorrow night, we'll be talking more on this subject of health. We'll talk about it starts in the colon. What we look at is the fact that majority of our diseases start in the colon. You don't want to miss that. And then we'll talk about the diet on Wednesday night. So my friends, join us and invite others to join us as we learn more this week on the subject of health, how to be